Today was decision day in Baltimore, where a federal judge was sentencing former Baltimore State's Attorney Marilyn Mosby. Prior to the sentencing, supporters of Marilyn Mosby held a news conference outside of the courtroom. We live streamed that event on the Black Star Network. And again, there were so many folks there standing with her, cheering her on. She had, of course, had been on this show last week, had done a number of different interviews talking about, of course, wanting to plead her case. Do we have what she had to say? All right, let's roll it.
Proverbs 3:5-6. Trust in the Lord with all your heart. Lean not on your own understanding. Submit to him in all of your ways, and he will make your path straight. I just want to say from the bottom of my heart, thank you. Thank you for the fight. Thank you to everyone who signed that petition. Thank you for the federal public defender team that so eloquently advocated on my behalf. Thank you. I swear God sent angels into my life to see me when I felt like I wasn't being seen. And I'm just so grateful to each and every one of you, to the 14 civil rights organizations that have signed on to that pardon. Urban League, NAACP, Win with Black Women, my brother, Ben Crump. I tell you, my sister, Angela Rye, Monique Presley. There were so many, Latasha Brown, Kim Gardner, all of the folks that came out today. And I would be remiss if I did not acknowledge those of you locally who were fighting for me from the beginning. The Sheenas, the Hakis, the Earthas, the Bills. I'm just so incredibly grateful. Reverend Slayton, thank you.
We love you, sister.
This is not over.
Right. That's right.
But God was here today, and I know he's with me.
Always.
He touched the heart of this judge and has allowed me to go home to my babies. From the bottom of my heart, Uncle T, Zai, there's so many of you all that have been there for me that I am so eternally grateful for. I could not name all of you in this moment, but it's because of you that I'm standing here right now, and I am forever and eternally grateful. God bless you all.
Marilyn Mosby was sentenced to 1 year of home confinement, 3 years of supervised release. This is, of course, after she was found guilty of perjury and fraud. The jury convicted her of lying about her finances to make early withdrawals from retirement funds during the pandemic and fraudulently claiming that her own $5,000 was a gift from her then husband, Nick Mosby, as she closed on a Florida condominium. Now, more than 50,000 people have signed the petition for Marilyn Mosby to receive a pardon from President Joe Biden. No word from the White House on that particular decision. It has been an emotional 3+ years as this investigation took place by the feds. She, of course, lost her job as Baltimore State's attorney in the primary. Her former husband, Nick Mosby, just a couple of weeks ago, lost his race as Baltimore Council president. She was facing up to 40 years in prison. The federal prosecutors were seeking about 20 months. It started off very well when the judge had a downward departure in terms of made a decision from that. But the judge did rule as she would have to forfeit her home, which is about $800,000 value. So we'll see if her attorneys are going to appeal that decision. But the effort to seek a pardon continues. My panel, Dr. Greg Carr, Department of Afro-American Studies, Howard University out of Washington, D.C., Joy Chaney, founder of Joy Strategies, and also joining us a little bit later, it's going to be Lauren Victoria Burke, Black Press USA. Joy, you heard Marilyn Mosby talk there. A number of people who she thanked, Angela Rye, led the effort when it came to trying to secure the pardon, building up all of the folks signing on to the petition. Last night, Tamika Mallory, they organized a prayer vigil for Marilyn Mosby. We live streamed that on the Black Star Network. She did a number of interviews talking about this case and bringing attention to pardon as well. There were many people who were like, man, she should just be quiet. But the reality is, had she been sentenced to prison, her two daughters would have been without their mother.
That's right. First of all, no matter what happens to you, never be quiet. Everyone tells you to be quiet, but it's the squeaky wheel that gets the oil. And if you believe that you've been wronged, if you believe, even if you haven't been wronged, if you believe you deserve mercy, you have to shout it. And you have to get a community of people to say, we stand behind you. This won't be done in silence, that this person matters to us. And therefore, when you're considering not the judgment, but the sentence, you can take into account community support, reputation, all of those things. And because ultimately what they're saying is that she harmed the community, but the community was saying, we stand behind her. And so she played it just right. Kudos to Angela Rye, who made a personal appeal to me and to others, and to all the civil rights groups who did not hesitate to support her. Sometimes we don't always come out and support each other out of fear of being associated with imperfection. But in this case, we had to come out and support our sister because she has supported so many others. However you feel about the case, she deserved a lenient sentence, and that's what she got today.
This here is the Baltimore Sun story here. I'm going to pull up in a second. Give me a second, Greg. And they're describing what took place in the courtroom. One of Mosby's lawyers, public defender Maggie Grace, asked Judge Griggsby to put a hold on the forfeiture order pending Mosby's appeal of her mortgage fraud conviction. The judge said the government had to return the down payment Mosby put on the property, which amounted to about 10% of the cost and 10% of the condo's appreciated value since she bought it. According to estimates from her attorneys, Mosby's property nearly doubled in value to almost $890,000. Prosecutors argue Mosby should have to forfeit the property and the entirety of its appreciated value. Quote, the defendant should not get to profit from her crimes merely because she invested the fraudulent proceeds. That's Assistant U.S. Attorney Stephanie Williamson. Mosby's lawyer says the government hadn't proved there was a nexus between the property and the crimes Mosby was convicted of. They also said the forfeiture was overkill because there was no harm to the mortgage lender, but the judge agreed with them, but said that the crime did cause harm. Quote, the court shares the defense's view there's no apparent financial harm to the lender, but there had been a significant harm to the public because of Miss Mosby's role at the time as both an elected official and an officer of the court. Greg?
Let's be very clear, Roland. This has nothing to do with anything other than a political prosecution. There's obviously mixed opinion in Baltimore amongst some of the activist community when it comes to Marilyn Mosby's record when she was in office. But let me be very clear, and thank you, Joy, for leading out, because it kind of allows me to echo what you said. This wasn't about that. A brother who you've had here on the network several times, Davon Love, the leader of a group called Leaders of a Beautiful Struggle in Baltimore, wrote a piece, and he said, quote, prosecuting her for taking money out of her own account, amongst other charges that have no potential to harm anyone, is a political punishment for Marilyn Mosby taking positions that challenge the racist policies of the law enforcement establishment. This is a sister who supported police accountability legislation, expungement of criminal convictions that stem from testimony of corrupt police officers. She supported decriminalizing cannabis and supported community-based approaches to violence prevention. And let us not forget the thing that put her on the map, which was prosecuting the funky paddle rollers that killed Freddie Gray. This had nothing to do with money of her account, her ex-husband's account, the house they bought, whether or not there was a victim. No, the victim in this is always black people. And I must say this in conclusion. We can set aside issues of class, issues of politics, and drill down very specifically on the single issue that has Marilyn Mosby in the news: race.
You know, this has been, again, lots and lots of drama back and forth. And again, it's been a pursuit. It has been a serious battle going back and forth. And Mosby has not been shy, has not been quiet. In fact, Marilyn Mosby, normally what happens, Greg, this year, defendants will speak, and what they'll do is they will actually address the court. But the fact of the matter is she didn't. And typically what happens is judges want to see the defendant actually admit to the crimes, plead for mercy on behalf of the court. But that was not what she did. Now, prior to the sentencing of the judge, a news conference was held outside of the courthouse. Angela Rye, Ben Crump, and others spoke.
My name is Angela Rye, and I'm proud to stand alongside Marilyn Mosby with so many Justice for Marilyn Mosby supporters. As you all know, today she's facing a sentencing. The things that she has been convicted of, when you look at the terms, the sentencing time, it could be up to 40 years. We've heard in the courtroom today that it will not likely be anywhere near that. Nevertheless, Marilyn is still up against attacks. The prosecution was asked by this judge today, who were the victims in these alleged crimes? And the prosecution said, that's a good question. And so today we have the same question. Who are the victims? Today, Marilyn's kids are with her in this courtroom. They would be the victims. The folks who've been impacted by watching someone who stood up for us, stood up for justice for us, we're all the victims. And so today we will continue to challenge this justice system to serve our dear sister as she has so righteously served it. You want to speak? Yes. You want to go first? Okay. Barbara Arnwine, the legendary Barbara Arnwine.
Yeah. First of all, to the people of the United States, to the people of Maryland, we have come here today because Marilyn Mosby deserves better. We deserve better. This has not been easy for any of us to watch her persecution over these last number of years. And it's no accident that people got on a bus from Baltimore, that people have come here today, overflowing all this courtroom because of the injustice that has been done to her. We want to be clear that if you watch this hearing today, what you've heard from the prosecution all day long has been contradictions. Contradictions. On the one hand, they want to say she's the most important defendant they ever had. Then they turn around and say, but we want to treat her like everybody else. Come on. It's very clear that this has been and will always be nothing but a vindictive prosecution. And it's important for all of us to stand here and say that we will not sit quietly by nor stand by while this is happening. We demand real justice. Enough is enough. Let her go home, be with her family, embrace her family, and let her move on in life. We will always see her as our shero. Thank you.
All right, sister. I'm Attorney Ben Crump. As an officer of the court, I will be very careful with my words. I am going to present here exactly what I intend to present in the courtroom. Your Honor, I stand before you with deep respect and humility, along with national civil rights leaders, especially black women, urging leniency in the sentencing of Marilyn Mosby. I acknowledge the significance of this hearing and the weight of your responsibility in ensuring equal and fair justice. Therefore, I will not dwell on the broader context of how Maryland and other progressive prosecutors seem to be targeted for their pursuit of equal justice. But instead, I will focus on her character and contributions. Marilyn Mosby has dedicated her life to champion justice. I first met her in 2015 at a National Bar Association conference when she was the state's attorney in Baltimore. She was a trailblazer, the first amongst a wave of young, idealistic black prosecutors inspired by legal scholars like Michelle Alexander, author of The New Jim Crow. Maryland's mission was to dismantle racial and social injustices entrenched in our criminal justice system. As the first to lead this movement, Marilyn Mosby not only symbolized the fight for equal justice in law enforcement, but she spearheaded it. History teaches us. History teaches us that pioneers are often targets.
Yes.
Marilyn Mosby was no exception. Following the tragic death of Freddie Gray, a young black man who sustained fatal injuries while in police custody, Marilyn took a bold and unprecedented step. She did what many before her would not. She investigated and charged the police.
Right on. Yes. Right on. Yes.
The decision was neither popular nor politically safe. It was a courageous act driven by a commitment to equal justice and integrity, demonstrating her dedication to preserving faith in the criminal justice system, especially for the marginalized citizens of Baltimore. Maryland's investigation prompted the United States Department of Justice to conduct its own inquiry into the Baltimore Police Department. Their findings were stark: a systematic pattern of violating the constitutional rights of citizens, disproportionately African American citizens, with excessive force, stops, searches, and arrests. This validation of Maryland's concerns underscores her role in advocating for systematic change. The prosecution of Marilyn Mosby seems intended to send a chilling message to other progressive prosecutors that their careers, their families, and their freedoms can be stripped away if they strive for equality and justice.
That's right. That's right. That's right.
We who cherish justice cannot allow this to be the prevailing message.
That's right.
We cannot. Your Honor, I understand the necessity of balancing mercy and justice. I do not seek to diminish the seriousness of these proceedings. However, I implore you to consider Marilyn's character and the broader implications of this case. Marilyn is a devoted mother and daughter with no criminal history.
Yes.
To sentence her to prison for being convicted of nonviolent minor offenses with no victims would be a grave injustice.
Yes. Yes.
And it would magnify the trauma of her two beautiful young daughters.
Yes.
The crux of the matter is this. The conviction should only be classified as a minor white-collar crime in which many others have been convicted of and face a sentence that amounted to a slap on the wrist with probation and in some instances, Barbara, a mere fine of monetary compensation with no other blemish on her record, their records, Angela.
Yes.
What is different here today is that underneath that white collar is the neck of a black woman who dared to challenge the status quo.
That's right. That's right.
This sentencing here today will add to the legacy of not only Marilyn Mosby, but also to the American legal system from the perspective of many black people in America. Much in the way that it established the legacy of many other courageous black women, like Rosa Parks,
That's right.
like Afeni Shakur,
That's right.
and like Angela Davis.
Yes.
History will remember people like Marilyn Mosby who followed their conscience even in the face of horrendous consequences.
My.
Martin Luther King once said that the coward asked the question, is it safe? He said expediency will ask the question, is it politically correct? He said vanity will ask the question, is it popular? But then he said conscience. Conscience will ask the question, is it right?
Is it right? Come on.
And Dr. King concluded there comes a time when one must take a position that's neither popular nor politically correct or not even safe. But there comes a time when one must follow their conscience because it is the right thing to do.
That's right.
As state's attorney of Baltimore, Marilyn Mosby always tried to follow her conscience and do the right thing by all of the citizens of Baltimore.
Right on. That's right.
To the young future freedom fighters,
Speak.
do not be discouraged.
That's right.
Do not be discouraged.
That's right.
Ida B. Wells was not discouraged.
That's right.
Rosa Parks was not discouraged.
That's right.
Afeni Shakur was not discouraged. Angela Davis was not discouraged. And at this time, we cannot be discouraged for standing up for what is right.
All right.
We can never be discouraged for standing up for what is right for our community and people who have been at the bottom of the well.
Yes.
Those black and brown faces who we must continue to stand up for no matter how much they attack us personally. You see, this isn't about us. This is about the future of our children having equal opportunity at the American promise of life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. That's what Marilyn Mosby was trying to do in following her conscience. She was thinking about those people at the bottom of the well who nobody ever gave a voice to. She was fighting to give them a voice. In closing, Your Honor, we put our faith in your wisdom and fairness to render a decision that balances justice with compassion. I ask you to do what is right, not just for Marilyn Mosby, but for the message it sends about justice and equality in our society. We thank you for your time, and we ask that God bless you and God bless us all in this moment in history. Thank you.
All right. All right. All right.
Correct?
Yeah, Attorney Crump pretty much summarized it, fortunately, because I am not constrained by being an officer of the court. I'll say what he can't say. There is no justice at the bar in this country for black people. The calculus of race clearly at play here. The judge, of course, in this case, Lydia Kay Griggsby, has only been on the bench not even 3 years. She was appointed by the Biden administration in this late date in U.S. history, the first black woman to sit on a district court in the state of Maryland. We all remember her orders early on in the case, including a limited gag order against members of Ms. Mosby's defense team, including our brother A. Scott Bowling, who subsequently withdrew from the case. And of course, it was Scott who has said more recently that this was based on personal, political, and racial animus, this prosecution. But, you know, Judge Griggsby having to watch herself. If you don't think these white nationalists are going to come at her and say that she let her off light because they're black women, well, there's hell, and you can go there, except we already live in it when it comes to the criminal and justice system. So I'll say what Attorney Crump could not say. And the only other thing that comes to mind is that when you take $40,000 and $50,000 in two separate withdrawals from your own deferred compensation plan, and when this punk prosecutor says that that money was being held in trust for the people of Baltimore, so whether it's your money or not, it was being held in trust, I will remind that punk of, let's double that. Let's say it wasn't 90,000. Let's say it was 180,000. Well, you still have to add $3,504 to get to the amount in PPP money that Marjorie Taylor Greene doesn't have to pay back. That's my tax money. It was held in trust and given out to a white nationalist, and she doesn't have to pay it back. In fact, let's go even higher than that. Let's talk about Vern Buchanan, $2.3 million. Let's talk about Mike Hearn, $1 million. Let's talk about Matt Gates, $482,000. All that was held in trust. So I'll say what Attorney Crump could not say. I wouldn't go so far as to compare Marilyn Mosby to Martin Luther King and Rosa Parks or Fannie Lou Hamer, except in this one way, and that one way makes all the difference. Everybody in this country, black, that pushes back against these powerful interests is in the scope of the target. There is no court that can save them. The reason that Marilyn Mosby is going to go home today to her daughters, and the reason that we continue this fight, and the reason why it doesn't matter whether Joe Biden likes you or not, to quote our brother Michael Harriot in a recent piece that he wrote, but whether he respects you, is that when you organize enough people, you can roll over powerful interests. And what we saw on display today was enough people were organized to roll over the powerful interests that sought to put this woman in the gun sights because she chose to push back a little against powerful interests.
Fanbase is pioneering a new era of social media for the creator economy. This next generation social media app with over 600,000 users is raising $17 million, and now is your chance to invest. For details on how to invest, visit startengine.com/fanbase or scan the QR code. Another way we're giving you the freedom to be you without limits.